capping off the prelims, we've got Gabriel Benítez, a.k.a. Mowgli, and David Onama. Now, David Onama, James Krause prodigy, there's something about that Mason Jones fight that I will never forget. I feel like, if I remember correctly, he was such a massive underdog in that fight. And the pace that he was willing to match against Jones was absolutely insane. He came out of that with a 29-28 unanimous decision loss. But, you think about it, and the one thing I remember telling myself is I wish those two men had a crowd and a massive stadium of people watching them. Because if there was any fight that was going to have people go absolutely bonkers that night, it was going to be Mason Jones and David Onama. So you talk about the things he did really well. To say that he outpaced Mason Jones in that fight, I don't think is far-fetched. Mason Jones did a lot of good things early, but the thing with David Onama that I noticed the most and I absolutely love about him is controlled chaos. I think that he was willing to take a few shots and then deliver some of his own, and it came from a place of not feeling too much in danger. I think that he was very successful in trying to find reversals to Mason Jones's takedowns. I think that Onama was the fighter that was carrying more power into the later rounds of the fight. You could tell that in rounds 2 and 3, his shots, when they were landing, were hurting Mason Jones to the point where he had to level change. The damage that he had done to Mason Jones's face by the end of the fight definitely showed how much that power was carrying later in the fight. And that's where I see this being a very tough fight for Gabriel Benítez. Now, we've all heard about the amazing kicks that he brings to the game. He's an AKA, OG. He's been there for a very long time. And it's just, for me, unless Gabriel Benítez looks for a lot more of the level changing and finding ways to control the fight to steal some points that way, I think this is a very tough striking battle for him. And you could see him trying to fight that battle out. David Onama, you think about that fight and how close it really was. It was Mason Jones' 8 of 11 takedowns that separated them and got him that win. So when I'm looking at this one, it's like, AKA of all gyms, Gabriel, please. If you wanted to find a guy who should be using some wrestling to change things up a little bit, it's definitely Benítez. You look at his last few fights and the guys he's taken on. I mean, the Sadiq Youssefs of the world, the David Onamas of the world, it just seems like these are guys who very much get, outclassed on the grappling side of things. But if you don't bring that with your game plan, you're kind of feeding, fuel to the fire in that sense. Because if this just turns into an absolute barrage of strikes for 3 rounds, it's just really tough to see Gabriel Benítez coming out on top. The southpaw style's there, all of that little bit, of quirkiness and creativity will always be there for Gabriel, but unless he's able to use those level changes to keep it competitive, I just think that Onama's pace and ability to really throw, not only combos but powerful combos for all 3 rounds is what's going to make this a very tough fight for Gabriel. So I do have this as a pick'em listed. I did not even write anything else. I think it's a pick'em leaning towards Onama in terms of the Vegas line, just because Gabriel Benítez, for all the good things we've seen him do, recency bias is not on his side. So let's take a look. Wow, my original line was -125 for Gabriel, and there it is as an opener. But talk about a pick'em, it was probably closer to a pick'em in the opening lines, but Gabriel Benítez basically flips from a -125 to a +115 to a +125 underdog. Onama opens as a +105 and now comes in about a -140 favorite. That's a lot to write home about when it comes to, an old school fighter like Gabriel Benítez and a big name on the come up like David Onama. So keep an eye out for that one. That could not only be the best prelim of the night, but potentially a fight of the night.